But in the same way that they touch their toes, I mean, I wish I could be as flexible as kids and put their toes in their mouth. You know, they're simply exploring their body parts. And again, if you yell, no, don't do that, the lesson is, that's dangerous. It's sinful. Don't touch it. That awakens a sense of taboo and curiosity in their minds, and eventually they want to explore it because that's human nature. So yes, that's very.
And that's really a good point, that as parents, we need to understand things that are very normal for one age of development is abnormal for another. Like a very young children love to run around the house naked or rip their diaper off. You know, that's very normal for young children. When they start to get a little older and still exhibit that behavior, then you may need to take a look at it. In fact, there's a wonderful book Doctors Ron and Karen Flowers wrote on understanding human sexuality and understanding the different phases. So when we talk about teaching children sexuality from birth, we're talking about making it age appropriate. And you can get that book. The title is Understanding Sexuality, Human Sexuality by Doctors Ron and Karen Flowers.
When I was ministerial director in Minnesota, I had a case where this lady came for my advice, and she said it was a man who came and said my daughter, 4-year-old daughter, was molested by a 13-year-old boy at the church. So then when we spoke with, which by the way had to be reported, I don't know if you understand what mandatory reporting means, but for some of us like pastors and teachers, a case like that has to be reported automatically. You don't have any exceptions. You don't think, well, we pray about this. No, you have to report it. So therefore the police had to get involved in that. And so when we spoke with the mother of the child, of the boy, she said, he told me that it was her. Now think about a 13-year-old boy, a 4-year-old girl. His account was that she opened her blouse and showed her breasts. And I said, no. A 13-year-old boy understands. A 4-year-old girl doesn't have a good knowledge of sexuality to say, I'm going to entice a 13-year-old boy by opening my blouse. Whether she opened her blouse or not is irrelevant. In fact, I don't believe she did. But even if she did, it was not a sexual move on her part.
Right.
And so that's why you have to understand the different developmental stages even in sexuality for a child. But again, the point is we need to begin that education with our children from the time that they are small. Not too far from here, many years ago when we worked for the Chesapeake Conference, we had a family retreat. And we were talking about some of these things. In fact, I think I had a slide similar to this on the screen, and we took a break during the Sabbath, or in between the Sabbath school and the worship service. And so this lady came running to me and said, take it off, take it off. I said, take what off? She said, take that off. I don't want my kids to see the 3-letter word. Now, so look, the 3-letter word is? No, the S-E-X. I mean, she couldn't even say sex. I said, well, what's wrong with that? And she said, I don't want my kids to see it. I think they're too young for that. And I said, well, how old are your kids? And she said, I have twin boys, 13 years old. And I said, you know, what I would encourage you to do is to sit down with them with pen and pencil and learn from them, because I assure you, they know about sex. They may not know it the right way. And that's the problem, that if we as parents don't explain to them the right way, the correct information, they are going to hear it. They're going to learn it from somebody else who probably has incorrect information too, and that's why there is so much misinformation out there for young people about sexuality. So wouldn't it be better for us to deal with it in a normal, natural way, having that conversation with them? But where does that begin? As Pam said, it's the conversation that she and I also have. Why is it that we can have sex as husbands and wives, but we are embarrassed to talk about it as husbands and wives? So Willard Harley And by the way, if you want to read a great book on sexuality, it's called The Song of Solomon. If you haven't read it lately as husbands and wives, I encourage you to spend some time reading it. In fact, it's a great book to read with your teenage kids. Because, you know, it's a beautiful book on the experience of dating and or courtship and marriage of this couple. But it's so descriptive that the rabbis and the early Christian leaders said, man, this is embarrassing. How could it belong in the Bible? So instead of saying it's great, it's God's plan for marriage, let's make it into an allegory of the relationship between God and His church. But as you start reading that book and you read the description how the man, and we're going to read a portion of it a little later, the man describing his wife as such a beautiful thing, including her legs, her thighs, her breasts, and you think, what does that have to do with the church? However, if you read it in the context of a marital relationship, there are teachings there for young girls to maintain their virginity for their benefit. So again, there are lessons there that our teenagers can learn if we teach them appropriately. So that's a great book to investigate, to review together. So Wilbur Harley says that we need to overcome our sexual ignorance. And I would recommend several books to you. So you might want to write this down, and I would recommend that you read them together. You know, my wife and I have worship every night, and we constantly read different things. Right now we're reading a book by King Kuzma that in fact I'm going to give away to this afternoon. But we have read many books, including some that have to do with sexuality. So here are some books that I would recommend you read. One of them is called Captivated by Love. The author is Alberta Mazat, M-A-Z-A-T. Alberta Mazat, M-A-Z-A-T. It's a very small paperback. Alberta Mazat was a nurse, or is a nurse, retired now, chair of the Family Studies Department at Loma Linda University. I think that was the Family Studies Department, Loma Linda University. And if you want to say it this way, she was kind of like the Dr. Ruth of Adventism, in that she spoke about sexuality at a time when the Adventist Church was not talking about sexuality. And that book is as current today as it was the first day it was written about 30 years ago under the title, That Friday Evening. Right now it's called Captivated by Love. Mazat, M-A-Z, as in zebra, A-T. Mazat. There are three other books that I recommend you look into. I love people that have a good sense of humor, and Kevin Leman, L-E-M-A-N, is one of my favorites. He wrote a book called Sheet Music, and then he wrote a second book that basically it's a question and answer book about sexuality, and it's called Under the Sheets. But probably my favorite book in that set, from Kevin Leman anyways, is one book called Sex Begins in the Kitchen. I remember the day I bought that book, I was in the store with my then 16-year-old daughter, who said to me, "Dad, you're not going to buy that book, are you?" And I said, "Absolutely, honey. Your mom and I are going to have a lot more cooking from now on." And she walked out of the store. She didn't want to be seen with her dad while he bought that book, but it's an excellent
Still
book.
today, our girls won't go to a bookstore with Dad.
So those are three books that I would recommend. There are many others. There are, in fact, I keep talking about it, and I keep forgetting to put a list on our website, and I intend to do it because there are many good books by Ed Weed, by Dr. Penner, by Dr. Rosendahl. I mean, there are all kinds of books, Christian-based books. I mean, you can buy all kinds of garbage books too. You know, The Joy of Sex from the 60s. It has some good information. My dating got into really weird, strange stuff. So I wouldn't recommend those, but those that are biblically based are the ones that I prefer anyway. So we can maybe share some of those at another time. So overcome your sexual ignorance. and then communicate your sexual understanding to each other. Now, one of the things that we have found is that men don't understand a lot about how women function sexually. For men, it doesn't take very long for us to be in the mood, so to speak, for sex. For women, it's a little different. In fact, someone compared men to a match that just fires up very quickly, but then kind of burns up very quickly too. Whereas women are more like a piece of coal, which takes longer, but then also stays on and warm a lot longer. And so one of the things that we like to do is to explain to you men something that I think you need to understand, and it's the whole issue of foreplay. Okay? Because women need a lot more foreplay before they can be ready for sex. And so I'm going to, you are married, you are a mature audience, and that's one of the reasons why we prefer that children not be present at these kinds of things. We don't say anything to offend anyone, but sometimes children don't understand some of these details, so that's why we prefer they not be here. So I'm going to describe to you in great detail, as clearly as possible, what foreplay is all about. I don't mean to offend anyone. I hope you're not shocked by anything that I say. If you think that I'm going too far, maybe you raise your hand and I'll stop. But I think, again, it's important for us to understand what foreplay is. So let me describe it to you, men. In the morning when you wake up, get up out of bed, make the bed, by the way. And then you take a shower, hang the towel in the towel rack. Go down to the kitchen and you find your wife fixing breakfast. Go behind her, put your arms around her, give her a kiss, tell her that you love her. And then after breakfast, tell her that you'll wash the dishes. Now, we saw last night, before you leave for work, make sure that you kiss her, and if you do at least a 10-second kiss, that's better. You know that, we talked about that research. Maybe about 9 in the morning, give her a call and tell her, I've been thinking about you, and I just want to let you know that I love you. Am I being too graphic so far? Anyone offended? So you're okay with that? Oh, maybe about 10:30, 11, you say, hey, listen, don't fix lunch. I want to take you to your favorite restaurant. I just want to spend time with you today. Oh, maybe about 3, 4 that afternoon, you can send her a text message that says, I can hardly wait to see you. And when you get home, you give her a hug and a kiss, and you tell her, honey, I want to change, but as soon as I change, I will take care of the kids. And after while you're taking care of the kids and maybe your wife is fixing dinner, you sit together at the table for dinner, which, by the way, research shows that couples that sit together or families that sit together for dinner, girls have a much lower index of pregnancy rate, a rate of pregnancy, teenage pregnancy. Boys have a much lower rate of suicide and depression, so make sure that you set aside time for family dinner. So you tell her, well, as soon as you finish dinner, I will wash dishes for you. And when you
No objection.
Ray saying, wait, you're going way too far here. And then maybe you can even say, I'll help put the kids to bed. And then I'm going to fix you a hot bath. See what I'm talking about when I say foreplay? It's not something that happens in a couple of minutes. It's what happens throughout the day. So if you treat your wife throughout the day that way, I guarantee that she should be, maybe I shouldn't guarantee, she should be more willing and happy to have sex with you. Okay? But I think it would only be fair for me to explain to you ladies what foreplay for a man is. So I want to be very graphic as well and describe it. You walk in the room. That's it. See, again, we're a lot easier. You walk in the room and I'm already thinking, wow, my wife looks good. She doesn't have to do anything special. She doesn't have to cook any special meals for me. Just walk in the room. And you know, some ladies will say, I just can't stand that. Men think about that all the time. My husband looks at me all the time like he wants to have sex with me. I'd say, wonderful. You'd rather he think about somebody else? Or you rather you walk in the room and he thinks, oh, that thing is coming. Wonderful.
Claudio, that sounded awful.
I know it sounds awful. I know it does. Is that what you would rather have your husband think about when he looks at you? When he looks at you and he says, wow, I still find you attractive. I still think of you as the best looking woman in the world and I would love to have sex with you, my wife. Wouldn't you rather have that? So understand that and practice those things both as husbands and wives. A wife may demonstrate her love in innumerable other ways, but it is often negated by her rejection or lack of enjoyment of sex. You may be a great housekeeper, a gourmet cook, a wonderful mother to your husband's children, but if you turn him down consistently in the bedroom, oftentimes those things will be negated. To a man, sex is the most meaningful declaration of love and self-worth. That's from Jill Rich, quoted by Gary Thomas in the book Sacred Marriage, which by the way is a wonderful book to read also as a couple. Now, when it comes to who initiates, because that's a question that we are asked very often, well, who should initiate? You know, I'm so tired of initiating every single time. Well, Dr. Douglas Weiss suggests that each spouse must be 100% responsible 50% of the time. In other words, 50% of the time we should initiate it, but we should be 100% responsible. In other words, I'll make it more clear. Let's say that my wife and I decide to take the 7 days of the week this way. I'm responsible for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Pam is responsible for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Sabbath is a bonus. You can obviously, in fact, you know the Jewish people believe that it is an obligation to have sex on the Sabbath, which I was that close from becoming Jewish just for another.
Notice he covered all 7 days of the week.
Well, so now, when I say I'm responsible for initiating Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, doesn't mean that we're going to have sex every single day, but I'm responsible for those 3 days. Now, I can choose to not have sex any of those 3 days, or I can choose to have one day of those days as a day when we're going to have sex, but that's my responsibility to initiate on those 3 days. And then on the other 3 days, she's responsible for initiating. The responsibility that we both have is to be 100% responsible for responding. Because if I'm supposed to initiate, say Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so Monday night I initiate and she says, I have a headache. Eventually I'm going to say, I'm not going to ask anymore. I'm not going to ask anymore. See, so that's what he refers to. By the way, that I recognize that we all have sometimes physical difficulties. We may indeed have a headache. We may indeed be sick. It may be that time of the month. So it doesn't mean that you have to have it every single day. At the same time, if you deny it every single day, eventually you are disconnecting emotionally from your spouse. It's kind of like the man that brought a big bottle like this, big tall bottle, and gave it to his wife, and she said, what's that? He said, it's aspirin. She said, I don't have a headache. I said, good. Okay, no excuse right now. Don't use that as an excuse. Don't use that as an excuse. It doesn't help.
The second thing that most men say is their need. Number one is sex. The second one, most often that comes up, is recreational companionship. Now notice this need has two parts, recreation and companionship. It's the things we do together just for fun. And you know, this was really easy to do when we were dating. When we were dating, I would love to go with Claudio to soccer games or watch the football games or the baseball games during baseball season or go to museums or for a walk. In fact, it really wasn't important what we did. I just wanted to be with him. But then couples get married, and then a baby comes along. And all of a sudden, you find yourself not doing those fun things, those play things that you did anymore. The busyness of life takes over. Your careers, all of a sudden you're at the age where developing your career is important. Taking care of your children is important. Who has time on a regular basis to go play? And so we really want to stress to you today that this is important in relationships. We've all heard the phrase, couples that pray together, stay together. Well, for this one, we want you to remember the phrase, couples that play together, stay together. We need to do those fun things together. We need to have those times when we're not talking about the financial difficulties. We're not talking about our jobs. We're not talking about the challenges our kids may have in school. We're just spending quality time enjoying each other together. So when was the last time that you had a date together? Not a business date, not an errand date. You didn't stop over by the cleaners, you didn't go get groceries together. Sometimes we call those dates. Those are not dates. But we need to be more intentional about spending time together, developing interest in your favorite recreational activities, learning to be proficient in them, and joining you in those activities. Now, I'm not saying, ladies, that you have to sit on the sofa all Sunday and watch the Redskins play, or whoever it is, unless you really enjoy football. Because notice, it's developing interest together. What are some things you like to do together? On the computer, you can find, just Google it, interest inventories. You can download some free interest inventories. Claudia and I did this one time. And we wanted to see what are some things that we both would mark on the list that we both enjoy doing. So we downloaded 2 of these free lists. I did mine. I marked all the things that seemed fun to me on the list. He did his. And then we compared it. And we found that we both had marked something that we had never done before. We had never been snorkeling before. And we both had marked snorkeling. So we decided to do it. We went snorkeling together. We had a wonderful time there in the ocean. But like I say, it's not so important what it is, but that you do something. It could be taking a regular walk around the block together. Just developing interest in your favorite activities.
I think the point that we're trying to make is that when you become complacent in your relationship, couples tend to get bored with that relationship. Which is one of the reasons why many couples, when they get to the empty nest years, suddenly you hear they're getting a divorce and you think, wow, they've been married for 30 years and now suddenly they're getting a divorce. Why? Well, because they have grown apart. They have basically based their relationship only on their children, and once the children are gone, they don't have anything else in common. And so you have to be intentional about keeping your relationship strong. And by the way, this is a little parenthesis. I like to share some research and statistics every so often because I think it's important for us to know that this is not just ideas that we came up with, but is backed by serious, solid research. When couples come to me as a marriage and family counselor and they say, Pastor, we've decided that we're going to get a divorce. I have to tell you, I don't believe in that divorce is the best solution anyway. But what I say to couples is, you guys do whatever you want to do. I can't make that decision for you. I can tell you this much, though, and I'm willing to put it in writing. I guarantee something. I guarantee your children will suffer. Children of divorce are the most affected of any children, period. They are affected financially, socially, spiritually, educationally, in every way. Children of divorce are affected. Why would you do that to your children? I remember going to the house of this couple, the pastor in Wisconsin, and they said, Pastor, we just can't get along anymore. We've decided we're going to separate. You know, our two boys, we've decided how we're going to handle it. He's going to take the older boy, I'm going to take the younger one. I said, what are you talking about? Are you talking about things? You know, you take the VCR and I take the DVD player. You know, you take the one car and I'll take the other car. They're not things. They're human beings that you created. They didn't choose to come into this world. You created. God created them through you. They suffer. They experience pain. Don't do that to your children. In fact, children of divorce, adult children of divorce, also suffer. I was given permission to tell this story, so I do it with his permission. I was at the office when I first started about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and Clifford Goldstein came to me, so in the hallways. I've known him for many years, so he said to me, hey, I want to tell you a story, and you can tell anybody you want. He says, when people say to you, well, my kids are already grown and gone, they're not going to care that my wife and I are getting a divorce, tell them that adult children of divorce also experience an awful lot of pain. So let me tell you my story. He said, I was 22 when my father walked out of my house. He says, not that we had the perfect family. He says, in fact, my family was very dysfunctional. I'll tell you how dysfunctional my family was. The day my father moved out of the house to move in with his girlfriend, my mother moved her boyfriend into our house. That's how dysfunctional the family was. But he says, but that day when my father left, I cried like a baby all day long. Because I realized my family had come to an end. My family had come to an end. So don't think that when you get older and your children get older, it doesn't affect them. It will affect them too. And of course, parents are affected also by the divorce of their children. So divorce altogether is the wrong solution. Don't consider it. Work on your marriage. Fight for your marriage. In fact, there's a book that we recommend strongly, Fight for Your Marriage, by Howard Markman and Scott Stanley. So this is one way. Again, develop interests that you have in common. Do you like to travel? Travel together. You like to go to museums? Go to museums together. Go for hikes together. Find things that you enjoy doing together as a couple. I'm not talking just about the family or the family as a whole, but just you as a couple. What do we do together that we enjoy doing together? Get those things or do those things on a regular basis, because that's how you continue to build that intimacy between the two of you.
The third things that men say most often is a need is physical attractiveness. Men like their women to keep looking good. Keeping physically fit with diet and exercise, wearing hair and clothing in a way that he finds attractive and tasteful. There again, think about it, ladies. When we were dating, how much time would we spend making sure we looked nice for that date? We would do our hair, we would probably wear 3 or 4 different outfits before we found the final one that would look just right for going out on that date. But then after we got married, it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? We've had so many couples tell us, the men will say, she never cares about herself anymore. She only fixes up or looks nice when we're going out to see somebody else. But she doesn't think it's important to look nice to me. She's sending me a message, you don't matter. You don't care. I don't care what you think. And sometimes we forget about that because, you know, it's nice to keep wearing those same footy flannel pajamas all the time.
I think
There's more.
those things should be outlawed as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Flannel pajamas, oh my.
We moved here from Minneapolis. We lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota. 7 winters. That's how I judge my time in Minneapolis. 7 winters. And let me tell you, those flannel pajamas felt pretty good in Minneapolis. They may not look good, honey, but you know what? They felt good. Those little things Victoria's Secret sells do not work in Minneapolis.
Crank up that heat is what you want to do.
Anyway, physical attractiveness. It's important for women to understand that no matter how many years you've been married, your man is still proud of you, and he still wants you to take the time to look nice just for him. Not always only when you're going out, but just for him.
Now again, this is the way that God created us as men. When God made Eve out of Adam's side, you know, I find it interesting. God brought Eve to Adam, and Adam didn't say, is she intelligent? Is she a good hard worker? He looked at her and immediately burst into the first verses of poetry. Wow, she is flesh of my flesh and bones of my bones. I mean, the guy could hardly contain himself. He was literally beside himself. You know, that's one of those times when that English expression is so true. And he was attracted to her immediately. And for the great majority of us men, a woman is attractive. The woman that we married is attractive. When I first met Pam, you know, some 35 years ago, I didn't know whether she was intelligent or not, whether she was a good student or not. It was her first day of school anyways. We talked about that last night. I immediately was attracted to the way she looked. That's all there is to it. Now, through the years, I've come to appreciate, in fact, very shortly, I came to appreciate her intellectual capacity, the kind of working ethics that she has, the kind of loving, emotional type person that she is. But that's not what attracted me to her. It was her, physically, what attracted me to her. And I think most of us, again, we're attracted to our spouse first, to our wives first, physically.
Now, when we started this section saying these are typically, we're going to talk about 10 needs, the 5 most important needs that men usually say, and then the 5 most important needs that women will typically say. However, I want to put a little insertion here. Some women also tell us this is their need, because many women say, he walks around the house all the time in his dirty old overalls that he wears to work with grease all over them, and then he doesn't care how he looks either. So as we're going through all 10 of these, there are some women who, when we finish and ask you to do your homework, you're going to say, you know what, honey, this is one of my needs. I would really appreciate it, you know, I have a need for you to look nice. So don't feel bad as we go through these if some of the ladies are saying, this is my need. I wish my husband would do a better job with this. The other thing I want to add here is, like in everything we're talking about in moderation. Because on the flip side of this, we know of a couple, the woman in the relationship thinks this need is her full-time job. And I kid you not, her job is the spa. Her job is the beauty parlor and the gym. She doesn't do anything else. From the time she wakes up in the morning to the time she goes to bed at night, she spends thousands of dollars, and I'm not kidding, thousands of the money that her husband works several jobs to make, making herself look like a Barbie doll. And she will tell you that is her only goal in life, to look like Barbie. And in some ways, she does. I mean, she has an injection here, an injection there, a hair treatment here, nail treatment the next day, and she tries to look like Barbie. So we are not talking about, we want to make it very clear, when we talk about a woman taking care of herself and looking nice, we're really talking in modesty. here. Making sure that you always keep yourself clean and showered, that your hair looks attractive, that you do the best you can with what God has given you. We're not talking about going to the mall and spending hundreds of dollars in what you wear or in the spa and beauty shop here, okay? So I want to add that here because we, like all things, Scripture teaches modesty in all things, and it goes with this one too.
I have a few cartoons to illustrate this. And, well, let me go back here to, because we need to make sure we also enjoy the Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verses 1 through 10. Because I want you to know, I want you to notice how Solomon describes his bride. Again, he doesn't say, well, she's smart like anybody else, or she's well-educated, a hard worker. You know, that's Proverbs chapter 31. But he describes her in her physical attributes. This is the way it goes. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter. Your rounder thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon which looks toward Damascus. So he's going, starting from her feet and keeps going up, describing her in every detail. Your head crowns you like Carmel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. How beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the scent of your breath like apples. The guy is in love with this woman. Every inch of her body he loves. Verse 9, and the roof of your mouth is like the best wine. And she responds, well, it goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. She loves to hear those words too. The only thing that I would counsel you is to not use the same expressions that he used at that time. You know, there's a place where so